Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. Today it is another Make It Happen Monday question that have been sent in by, let me get the name because I always forget it. This is sent in by Jessica Sapida, and she asked, what are some ways to do media content without being stuffy? What are some of the strategies that work well for building a following? And in what ways has that impacted your business schedule, revenue, etc.? So there's a lot in this to break down. I think I'm going to focus mainly on the social media content, or any content. Actually, I know that we tend to focus on social media, but actually anything that leaves the business is a representation of us and the way we want to be portrayed. So if you don't want to come across as that stuffy business leader, tuition business person, how can we do that? And then the rest would be looking at how it's impacted like our business. I'm not sure what business schedule means, but we can talk about timetables and things another time. But in terms of revenue, I think this is a really important question that we need to dig into. So let's make a start. I think the real question here isn't about social media content. It's more about how do we show up in a way that builds trust, attracts the right people, but still leads to business growth. And I think that that's what we want essentially. Is now, it doesn't mean to say that it's all about, we must do this to get our business growth, and we set new targets and we try to reach them and we keep building and building and building. I think it's more about like, what are the targets for the business? What are our desired business outcomes? For some of us, it's about reaching 30 children every year. Like, that's what our timetable allows us to teach. It might be that we're still doing one-to-ones and 30 children a week is plenty, in which case most of the time word of mouth is going to be the way that you attract the right people. That's essentially what we do when we're talking about a business of that size. Now, if you want to attract 50 to 100, word of mouth is still going to play a part, but we're going to have to look at other ways that people find out about us. So building trust, making sure we are attracting the right sort of families that we could support, will help us move towards that desired business outcome. So building trust, creating a content machine is what I often call this, because this is what I teach in the signature course. I'm like, well, look, social media or having something leave the business is kind of crucial if we are looking to grow or scale our own business and then include other tutors. We're going to have to find other ways for people to find out about us. We do that by having content, or we promote, or we do paid ads. But even paid ad will take some heavy lifting away, but we still have to have the content. It still has to be set up in a way that there's a customer journey that we want them to follow through all the way till we get a sales conversation. So how we show up still really matters. So content, although I'm not going to go in depth in this into the sorts of content that we could create, I want to kind of answer the question in a broader context. Content should essentially answer a few things. It should answer who we are, what we believe, who we help, the sorts of problems that we solve, which could be different depending on the services that we offer. If you're a primary school teacher, it's highly likely that you're going to have skills that could help a year one child as well as a year six. Probably different problems to solve there, but more content for you to come up with and talk about. Your content should really share, like, how are you thinking about these problems? Why do they exist? We talk about that, then we start developing trust, and then we can do things like, why should they trust you, and how can they work with you? So good content, or content that helps you convert, it's not just about noise, it's about familiarity. And this is another thing with a good content machine, isn't just about churning out new content over and over and over again. And I challenge you now to think back to the adverts that, if you're of a certain generation, so I'm 44, if you're of my generation or older, we probably have adverts that are just ingrained in our memory. Why are they ingrained in our memory? Why are they the ones that we sing along to, or suddenly the tune enters our head and we're humming along to it, or singing the If it's a quiz and it comes up and you hear that music, you automatically know the words. Like, there's a familiarity with some of the adverts that we were shown. We actually grew to love them because we saw them so much, or they became a series that we did look forward to kind of seeing. Oh, it's the advert on, quick, come and have a look at this. I mean, the Bisto gravy one springs to mind, the milk tray ad, the Mars bar ad with the blue car and the red car. These things are ingrained in our brain because we saw them so often. They did not worry. Those marketing executives did not worry about creating a new advert every single day, or a new way of promoting their product every single day. They actually relied on the fact that we do kind of feel quite comforted when we see the same thing over and over. So we can have variety now, and we are getting used to this as consumers, but there could be a common thread that just runs through your content. So good content builds familiarity. We don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. And it's that familiarity that actually builds trust. And that I think we should take comfort from that we don't always have to keep creating new things all the time. So the layer one thing I'd like to get into here, because some of us will want some kind of formality, depending on the sort of target audience, really. If you're going for international clients, so from China, the Philippines, those people who are looking to send their children to the UK to study, they are probably going to want some formality. And so I'm going to change the word from stuffy to formality. Let's keep it a bit more formal. That's what they're going to connect with. That in itself, for them, oozes trust. And so if you're not going for that, and understand, and this is not your research for the international market, by the way, go and do that. It's not your research for any market. I'm going to ask you to go and do that separately. But understanding who you're trying to target does determine how you want to show up. Now, I think there was another question which I'm in an arm about whether to use this one today, and it was about how you find your how you find authentic leads, which is an interesting one, and it's probably quite layered anyway. But I'm going to bring that in here. I think you find authentic leads. You find the right people if you show up as you. If you start to show up and create content that you think other people will like, that's tiring. You're also not going to attract the right people, but also you're going to have to keep showing up almost like a false version of yourself. And trust me, that does not last very long. You're going to end up having to put it down, or the mask will slip at some point. So from an authentic point, when we talk about the word stuffy or formal, if you start showing up as yourself, the right people will start to find you. So what are the authentic things that you could talk about? What if you were going to write or design a leaflet, what kind of authentic things could you put on there? Now, the word authentic here could be misconstrued into other things. And what we're not saying is, well, show up and say, like, I support West Ham, I love football, I can't wait for the World Cup. That might have a place somewhere, but on a leaflet, probably not. But as a piece of social media content, probably could be, if you really wanted to. It could be do a bit of content on you filling out the World Cup chart, if that's your bag. It could be me talking about how gutted I am that West Ham got relegated this year. It could be that I play football for an old man's team because I'm an old man now. Any of those things. So what if I turn up and talk about those things? They're authentic things. That's the real me. But that's very much on the private side of life. What about like with tuition? What about of education? If I talk about nurture groups, if I talk about how I think the maths curriculum is too squished, there's too much in it in primary school. If I talk about how it's weird that I think in years 7 and 8, they tend to go over the maths that we've done in years 5 and 6. And there's no real, not huge amount of new material there. So why are we squishing all this content down in here if they're just going to go over it again here? I can come and talk about those things probably over and over and over again. I'll get on my soapbox about it and have a bit of a rant. If I can talk about those things, their parents will connect with that. I could also talk about how English is not my thing. I find it really difficult. I can do a bit of creative writing up to about year 6, but then I really start to struggle. Now, would I say that? Maybe not in those words, but I'd say where I am an expert is at primary. Creative writing at primary level, can do that, no issues. And I can probably use all these things that I have outside of my work life and include them in my in my creative writing lessons. When we turn up in that way, that's authentic. That's not stuffy. That's real. We can talk about those things. And we can. What's your boundary? I mean, I'm doing this other thing in the Facebook group at the moment where I'm turning up every day for 10 days straight and talking about something that, of a mindset or something to do with business, only briefly, just to get people talking about it. And one of the things I spoke about yesterday was boundaries. Like, where do your boundaries lie? Are you okay talking about your family? You're okay, like being really vulnerable and talking about how much you love and hate West Ham at the same time. Those kind of things that people. I'm not. Me talking about West Ham probably switches a lot of people off. But me talking about maybe like taking my kids down to the arcades at the weekend and winning something out of the machine, or watching my son play football on a Sunday afternoon, or talking about tennis with my daughter, F1 with my daughter suddenly has an F1 addiction, which is really weird considering we don't really follow motorsport. We talking about those things is really great. And actually, some of those things, there's maths in there. There's a chance to talk creatively, predict. That's kind of. I mean, I love sports. I could talk about that for ages. I will move on because otherwise, I know you're going, "What is this guy going on about?" Let's move on to the next layer. But you'll see, like turning up in an authentic way. What does that look like for you? Where do you draw the line? What are your boundaries? What are off limits? I think with any content, and this is a bit of a battle. Like we've started a new podcast with somebody, and it's been a little bit of a battle. Is probably the wrong word, but the conversation around like what it should look like, what it should sound like. If it's something's too polished, I think it takes a little bit of the human connection away. I mean, I don't know how long I've been recording for. I've probably stumbled over my words in this recording maybe 4 or 5 times, and a couple of times quite like severely. Now, I could go back and edit and get those bits out, make myself sound way more professional than what I probably am. I choose not to. One, because I don't want to go back and edit. I prefer to do these in one take. Sometimes if I really mess up, I just start again. I think it rarely happens now because I've been doing it for a little while and I can kind of roll with the punches. If there's a little mistake, we just kind of let it go. So we use this word professional and then polished. If it's too polished, I think it switches certain people off. Well, it definitely switches me off. I haven't, for example, really connected with the Diary of a CEO over the last 18 months for a couple of different reasons, but I think it had a real switch from being quite business focused into kind of more in that well-being space, which is okay. Sometimes it piques my interest, sometimes it doesn't. But it's so well like put together and the guests are so well prepped that it's lost for me that rawness, and then it doesn't come across as authentic. And I don't know whether that's true. I think maybe I've been a little bit unlucky, as in, I'll give you an example, right? So they get an author in and they're an expert in what they do. Obviously it's why they're writing a book. And promoting it and paying to promote it around the world, that kind of stuff. I get all that. But when they sit down and try to, and there's like this chance to have a really open and honest conversation, but then it feels like, oh, you're so media trained and it's almost like too good. And I think that I prefer to connect with real honest conversations where we can get beneath the layer of that kind of professionalism or polished version of that person's self. So we just go a little bit deeper. And I think like you have that opportunity. Now, that's going really deep, and let's not beat around the bush. Like, we're not trying to make Diary of a CEO here. What we're trying to do is create content that people connect with. And I think what I'm saying is people connect with you if you turn up or in an authentic way. Now, I'll be honest, like when I first did videos online, I did edit out all the ums and ahs, and it took ages. Like a 5-minute video would probably take me 45 minutes to edit and put out. And then over time, you suddenly get used to the fact that actually these ums and ahs, the things that we are our own worst critic about, nobody else really notices. And it becomes part of who you are, and that's what people like. So turn up as you, and in the tone that you want. So if you want that formality, you might just slow it right down. You might prepare a script. It might be a bit newsreader like style to start off with, as you are like, yes, and today we are going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And it'll be like that. Make it robotic. If it means that you do it, it's far better to do it than not to. And as you ease in and you relax into it, if you're attracting clients that definitely want that professional and element and that polished formal approach, keep it that way. But if you want something a bit more relaxed, if you want something which is a bit more fun, maybe showing off the more fun side of your personality because they're the kind of families you want to work with, then go and follow people who do that. I think Vicky does a really great job with her TikToks, with her reels, and she makes it funny and really easy to connect with. It's engaging, which is at the right fun end of everything. If we put it on a scale, and there's former on the other, where do you want to sit in that kind of scale? And that's down to you on a personal level, and also might be a learning curve. It would be for me if I wanted to make a funny reel. I've no idea how to do it. But what does professional mean? Should we dig in there? Like clear, trustworthy, you're consistent, you're helpful, honest, reliable. I mean, look, all the classic words for us there, but we can be all of that and fun at the same time. And also, like, we don't always have to be in one of these lanes. Actually, formal posts have a space. Maybe your fun posts do as well, and it shows off all angles of your personality. The next layer that I'd like to get into is that content can be about performing, but it's not just about that. Like for some people it is. Some of my favorite social media creators definitely is about performing. It is about almost creating a show with their personality, with their camera, and coming up with funky ideas to keep us watching. With tuition, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I mean, look, there are social media pillars, and one of those pillars is education. We firmly fit there, don't we? Like that's like the unwritten rule. We are educators, so we kind of want to take that pillar and make the most of it. How can we educate our audience? Now, educate as in the actual sense of, can we share our knowledge? What does that look like? Can we actually give little snippets away of what we teach and how we teach it? That's a really good way of building trust. But there's also the education, like educating your audience on how you work. So content around that and your values around education. It's really important that people understand that. So we don't necessarily have to turn up with a funky dancing video or the green screens. Some of that could work really well. Sometimes just showing up in a similar way as I'm showing up now and just talking out loud. And I would say my big business growth came when I got confident on Facebook Lives when they were still pushed out by Facebook, and would just show up every Friday and just talk about the Kent test for a bit, 5-10 minutes. They'd get decent views. That would create inquiries, and eventually my groups would start to grow up, or my workshops would be a bit more full, and then the workshops would lead to people and children doing the weekly sessions. So it doesn't have to be anything flashy. Actually, we can just go, well, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to do TikTok dancing or those kind of things. That would be terrible for everybody else as well as for me. But I can definitely show up and talk about the Kent test, which might send some people to sleep. But if you're a parent and you're worried about this, or you're looking for support, they're ready and waiting for you to do it, to turn up and show up in that way. And then they're going to give you their telephone number, or they're going to send you a message or send you an email, or they might watch the next few that you do before they do that. But you're creating your audience in that way. And I think that kind of starts to answer the second part of this question. How does it impact the growth of your audience? How does it impact your business schedule? Well, what do we all want in business? And it doesn't matter which business we do. We want to have more leads coming in and with more conversion. And one number impacts the other. The more leads you have coming your way, the more conversions you will have. Even if the conversion was at 2%, that's okay. If you're reaching 100 people, getting 2 people in, reach 200 people, you're getting 4 people in, and so on and so on. So the one number impacts the other. So find ways to grow your outreach. Content can also be like arranged from the questions that parents are asking you. What are your frequently asked questions? How often do you put content out that answers them? Write them down. I think the frequently asked questions part of business isn't used enough in like small business. We often think that, the frequently asked questions lives on multinational companies, websites. But it has a place here as well. And if you don't have a website, you can just do this on your Facebook page or Instagram page, wherever it is you're growing your audience. create content around it and make it a thing. Oh, this is a frequently asked question I get asked. I say this all the time. I think I use this on the podcast probably more than anywhere else. What's the most frequently asked question in the Facebook group for us tutors? Pricing, usually, finding new clients, social media, growing and scaling, hiring, opening a center, being online. You know, they are the frequently asked questions. I know that. So guess what? I can talk about it on the podcast because it means more people will listen. I will add these things into the course because I know they are important, and we can go an extra, like, deeper level into it. We can really make sure we solve the issues for people and hold their hand along the way. That's what works with frequently asked questions. Okay? You can use the worries and the issues that people bring and then bring it into everybody's viewpoint. There's I suppose let's move into the next phase of this question, which is about the following. I think I've answered the question around the impact but almost like turning up in your authentic self. I know there's probably more that we could do here, definitely, but showing up as your authentic self, I think, answers that. And I've given you some ideas about how you can show up, and then how this also impacts on your on how your audience will perceive you and then actually create leads into your business, so it will impact your business. If you're sat there thinking like, well, I'd like to grow a following, because why wouldn't we? I mean, this is how we essentially nurture our audience and bring them into the business when it's the right time. We might not have a good strategy for this yet. Now, whenever you're thinking about growing an audience or growing a following, what I'm going to say is play the long game. Our aim isn't to become a viral superstar on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. If it happens, by the way, great, because that is a surefire way to get more followers and more reach. And whichever platform you're using is going to love you for a little bit and push your content out there far and wide. What we shouldn't be doing is copying trends. Not all of them. It's not a bad idea to copy trends if you don't mind dancing about, or there's a particular trend that makes you laugh or giggle. No issues there. But still with the aim of trying to reach the right people. Half the issue with virality in social media is that they say, and this has happened recently, somebody in a Thrive business circle went viral. I think it's over 1 million views. One of the issues is, how do we use that? And if you look at we looked at the data, or he shared the data with us, and it's like, well, most of these aren't in our ideal audience. Doesn't mean to say we can't lean into it and use it, because we can just keep pumping it back out, reaching new people, creating a customer journey. But it's certainly not like a magic wand. So when we're looking at trends, yeah, do it if it's fun. And if it goes viral, great. But it's highly likely not to impact massively straight away on your business. But it could help further down the road. So I'm not saying let's not go viral. Great if we do. But let's set up the customer journey so we can take advantage of it. Let's not be worried about also the, what do we call it, where we worry about metrics that don't matter, like the fashionable metrics, like how many likes have I got? It doesn't matter. What's the most important metric in your business is, are we creating leads? Are we creating sales conversations, and how many of them are converting? That should be the purpose of anything that leaves the business. So show up consistently. Make sure that you are turning up as your real self. Be useful. Share things that people will get something from it. Share your values. Answer questions. Any frequently asked questions. Create content around it. Helping the right people feel heard and understood. So talking about parents that have come towards you or shared what they have, what their issues and their worries. You can create content around that. And then the aim is we create trust over time. It's not about putting one post out there and thinking this is it, now my business is going to grow, watch the money come in. It's about being consistent for 3 to 6 months, doing the groundwork so that people do follow you, so people do build that trust, and they will follow that customer journey until you've put something out there that's created that sales opportunity and they go, yes, this is the right time for me now. So your customer journey is so important in this. I think that's it for this week. I don't think we can go any further with this right now. If this is something which you're like, oh, content is this thing, I'm really struggling with it, just remember familiarity really works. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. It can be the same It can be similar. It can be it can create a sense of belonging as well, making sure that people can connect with it in that way and that it does feel okay. It does feel like, yes, it's something which I'm really into, or I really trust this person, or this is funny, or whatever it may be, whatever your aim may be. Um, and hopefully that takes the pressure off a little bit, that you don't feel like you have to keep coming up with constant new ideas, because you don't need it. So if you are worried about creating content that kind of feels stuffy or too formal, I would stop trying to be the perfect version of the business owner and just start being you, sounding like the kind of the thoughtful teacher that you are, the thoughtful tuition business owner that you are, that you just want to understand and help people. The goal with content is not about being everywhere or to be viral. The goal is not to become like this, like over the top content machine. It's about building trust and growing an audience or following if you want, and then making sure the customer journey points them towards working with you. When people trust you, they tend to listen to for longer. They come back, they share things, they recommend you to others, even if they're not current clients, by the way. So you can have a really loyal following where a few of them are your customers, a few of them just like you, and they share and they become like champions of your business, which I think is like amazing. And that they do that for free because of the content that you put out. So they might not be your clients, but they might be where you get your next client from. So look, that's the end of this one. Let me know what you think, as always, and I'll speak to you all soon. I'll see you later. Bye bye.